Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun!
Not this again, groaned Jay as the textbook tumbled from her grip, words echoing through the stuffy dorm room. Laughter erupted amidst the mess of scattered books, empty chip bags, and discarded clothes, a typical scene for these three roommates.
You promised, Jay! Thought you'd finally agreed to this friendly wager,
teased Lily, her emerald eyes twinkling with mischief. Nate, the ever-serene mediator of the trio, intervened. Now, we didn't agree to that specific bet, Lily. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. And I want you to attend the Gamma Phi party as a Playboy bunny. Atticus Blake ran a hand through his short blonde hair, his lean frame stiffening with anxiety. The navy blue hoodie and faded jeans that hung comfortably on his slender body suddenly felt like armor he was reluctant to remove.
This is ridiculous,
Atticus muttered, scanning the room for any sign of support. Marcus, scrolling through his phone on the bottom bunk, glanced up with an amused smile.
You did lose, man. Spectacularly, I might add. Poker's not exactly your strong suit,
added Devin, adjusting his glasses as he collected the cards.
Should have folded when you had the chance.
The clock on the nightstand blinked 10:42 p.m. Halloween was only 2 days away, and the Gamma Phi Halloween Bash was legendary on campus. Hundreds of students would be there, including countless people from his business administration classes.
I'll do something else,
Atticus offered desperately.
Streak across the quad?
Eat that mystery casserole from the dining hall? Trent shook his head, his grin widening.
Nope,
this is perfect. I already texted my girlfriend. She's ecstatic about helping with your transformation. Atticus sank deeper into the worn couch cushions. I don't even know where to get a costume like that.
Already handled,
Trent replied, reaching under his bed to pull out a glossy shopping bag. Rhonda's cousin works at that costume shop downtown. Got you everything you need. The bag landed with a soft thud at Atticus's feet. He stared at it as though it contained venomous snakes rather than fabric and accessories. This is going to be a disaster, Atticus groaned, finally reaching for the bag with reluctant fingers.
Or,
Marcus piped up,
it might just be the most memorable Halloween of your college career.
Atticus had no response. As his roommates continued their banter, he retreated to the bathroom, the mysterious bag clutched in his white-knuckled grip. 2 days later, Atticus stood frozen in front of the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the person staring back. Rhonda, Trent's girlfriend, had spent nearly 2 hours working her magic. His short blonde hair was now hidden beneath a matching long blonde wig, with bangs framing his face. The makeup transformed his features, softening his jawline, accentuating his hazel eyes with smoky eyeshadow and mascara, and adding a glossy pink tint to his lips. "Stop fidgeting!" Rhonda commanded, adjusting the black satin bunny ears atop his head. "You look amazing!" Atticus swallowed hard, eyes tracing down to the tight black corset that cinched his waist and created the illusion of curves where there had been none. The black satin fabric gleamed under the harsh bathroom lights. Fishnet stockings clung to his freshly shaved legs, disappearing beneath the corset bottom. A white cotton tail was affixed just above his rear, and his feet were squeezed into glossy black high heels. "I can't breathe in this thing!" he gasped, tugging at the corset.
"Beauty is pain,"
Rhonda quipped, stepping back to admire her handiwork.
"But seriously, you look better than half the girls I know."
A sharp knock interrupted them.
"Are you two done in there?"
Trent called through the door.
We're going to be late!
Atticus shot Rhonda a pleading look.
I can't do this.
Yes, you can, she insisted, her voice softening.
Everyone will be in costumes. Half the people there won't even know it's you.
She opened the door before he could protest further. The reaction from his roommates was immediate and loud.
Holy shit!
Marcus exclaimed, his pirate costume forgotten as he stared wide-eyed. Devon, dressed as a zombie doctor, whistled appreciatively.
Dude, you look not like a dude.
Trent circled Atticus, nodding with satisfaction.
Excellent work, babe,
he told Rhonda, before turning to Atticus with a challenging smirk.
Well, a bet's a bet. Let's see if you can make it through the whole party.
Atticus took a tentative step forward, wobbling slightly on the unfamiliar heels.
If I fall and break my neck in these shoes, my ghost will haunt you forever. Worth it.
Trent laughed, grabbing his vampire cape.
Now, let's go show off my masterpiece.
The autumn night air hit Atticus like a shock as they stepped outside the dorm building. The corset offered little protection against the chill, and goosebumps immediately spread across his exposed skin. Campus paths were filled with students in various costumes heading toward Fraternity Row.
I can't walk all the way to Gamma Phi in these heels,
Atticus protested, already feeling blisters forming.
Fine, princess,
Trent snorted, pulling out his car keys.
We'll drive.
The five of them piled into Trent's aging sedan, with Atticus wedged uncomfortably in the middle of the back seat. The short ride to Fraternity Row was filled with teasing commentary and last-minute costume adjustments. As they pulled up to the sprawling Gamma Phi house, Atticus's stomach tightened with anxiety. Colorful lights pulsed from within, and costumed figures streamed in and out of the massive front doors. The bass from the music vibrated through the car windows.
Remember,
Trent said as they exited the vehicle,
you have to stay until at least midnight, and you have to actually socialize. No hiding in the bathroom all night.
Atticus nodded glumly, adjusting his bunny ears.
Let's get this over with.
The group made their way toward the entrance, where two Gamma Phi brothers dressed as bouncers checked student IDs. Atticus held his breath as he handed over his identification, half expecting to be turned away or laughed at. The bouncer glanced from the ID to Atticus's face, then grinned.
Nice costume, man. Have fun.
He stamped Atticus's hand and waved him through. The interior of the house was a sensory overload. Strobe lights cutting through artificial fog, music loud enough to make conversation nearly impossible, and the press of bodies creating a furnace-like heat. Atticus immediately lost sight of his roommates as they disappeared into the crowd, leaving him stranded in a sea of strangers.
Hey there, Bunny!
A deep voice called over the music. Atticus turned to find a tall guy in a firefighter costume, appraising him with interest.
Can I get you a drink?
Atticus's first instinct was to flee, but something unexpected happened as he opened his mouth to decline.
Sure,
he heard himself say, the word emerging in a softer tone than his usual voice. The firefighter grinned and disappeared toward the kitchen, returning moments later with 2 red cups.
I'm Chris,
he shouted over the music, handing Atticus a drink.
I'm Gabriella,
Atticus replied, the name materializing from nowhere. It felt right somehow, rolling off his tongue naturally.
Great costume, Gabriella,
Chris said, leaning closer.
Want to dance?
Before he could consider the implications, Atticus found himself being led to the makeshift dance floor in the living room. The corset restricted his movements, but there was something liberating about swaying to the music in his new form. Chris kept a respectful distance while still making it clear he was interested, and Atticus found himself enjoying the attention in a way he never had before. As the night progressed, Gabriella garnered admiring glances and compliments. Several guys asked for her number, and a group of girls in angel costumes insisted she join their selfies. No one seemed to recognize him as Atticus, the quiet business administration major who usually blended into the background. "You're really owning this," Rhonda commented when she found him an hour later, sipping his second drink by the punch bowl.
Having fun?
Atticus considered the question seriously.
Actually, yes,
he admitted, surprising himself.
It's weird, but I feel, confident. People are seeing me.
Rhonda studied him thoughtfully. "You know, some people discover things about themselves in college. Maybe this is your discovery." Before Atticus could respond, Chris reappeared.
"There you are,"
he said with a warm smile.
"Thought I'd lost you."
Rhonda raised an eyebrow at Atticus, then slipped away with a knowing smirk. For the rest of the night, Atticus allowed himself to be Gabriella, laughing, dancing, and experiencing the party through an entirely new lens. The midnight deadline came and went without him even noticing. It was nearly 2 a.m. when Trent finally tracked him down, looking impressed. "Dude, you're still here! And are you flirting with the quarterback?" Atticus blinked, coming back to reality.
"I guess I am."
Trent shook his head in amazement.
"You win, man. Bet totally fulfilled and then some. Ready to head back?"
The ride home was subdued, each occupant lost in their own thoughts. Atticus stared out the window, watching the campus buildings slide past. Something had shifted inside him, a door opening to a room he hadn't known existed. Back in the dorm, he carefully removed the costume, placing each piece back in the shopping bag with unexpected tenderness. The makeup came off with Rhonda's special wipes, revealing his familiar face beneath, yet it now seemed like a mask rather than his true self. As he lay in bed that night, he found himself whispering the name that had come so naturally. Gabriella. A week passed, and the Halloween party became a favorite topic of conversation in the dorm room. Trent frequently recounted how Atticus had committed to the bit, while Marcus continued to express his shock at how convincing the transformation had been. Atticus laughed along, pretending it had all been just part of fulfilling the bet. But privately, in moments alone, Atticus found himself thinking about how it had felt to be Gabriella. The confidence, the freedom, the rightness of it all haunted him. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, when he knew his roommates would be in classes for hours, Atticus found himself in the downtown shopping district, standing outside a women's clothing store. Heart hammering, palms sweating, he finally gathered the courage to enter. "Can I help you find something?" asked a friendly sales associate with curly hair. "I'm, looking for a gift," Atticus stammered, the prepared excuse tumbling out. "For my girlfriend." "What's her size?" Atticus hesitated, then gave measurements close to his own. The associate guided him through the store, helping him select a simple black skirt and a soft burgundy sweater. He added a pair of black tights and, with nervous determination, a set of simple underwear. "Your girlfriend is a lucky lady," the associate commented as she rang up his purchases. "Not many guys take the time to shop so carefully." Atticus managed a weak smile, his heartbeat thundering in his ears as he handed over his credit card. The shopping bag felt simultaneously weightless and unbearably heavy as he carried it back to campus, hidden inside his backpack. That evening, while his roommates attended a basketball game, Atticus locked himself in the bathroom with his secret purchases. The clothing fit surprisingly well, the fabric soft against his skin. He didn't have the wig or makeup, but as he gazed at his reflection, blonde hair tousled, hazel eyes wide with wonder, body draped in clothes that somehow felt more authentic than anything in his regular wardrobe, he whispered again, "Gabriella." Over the following weeks, Atticus developed a careful routine. His female wardrobe grew piece by piece, hidden in a duffel bag beneath his bed. He learned to apply subtle makeup from late-night YouTube tutorials, practiced walking in heels when the dorm was empty, and even ordered a proper blonde wig similar to the one from Halloween. When his roommates were away, Gabriella emerged, at first just in the privacy of the bathroom, then venturing out to occupy the whole dorm room, eventually brave enough to sit at his desk, completing assignments while dressed in her true form. As the semester progressed, the dual life became increasingly difficult to maintain. Atticus felt more and more disconnected from his male identity, going through the motions in classes while secretly counting the hours until he could be Gabriella again. The urgency of his feelings both terrified and exhilarated him. 3 months after Halloween, Atticus called Rhonda and asked to meet for coffee. She arrived at the campus cafe in a puffy white coat, eyebrows raising in curiosity as she slid into the booth across from him. "This seems serious," she commented, unwinding her scarf. "Everything okay?" Atticus stared down at his untouched coffee. "Remember what you said at the Halloween party? About discovering things about yourself in college?" Recognition dawned in Rhonda's eyes. "Yeah, I remember. I think I discovered something." His voice trembled slightly.
"And I don't know what to do about it."
Rhonda reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "Tell me." The words that had been building inside him for months finally spilled out, about the secret clothes, about the name that felt like coming home, about the growing certainty that Gabriella wasn't just a costume, but a fundamental truth. When he finished, Rhonda's eyes were gentle. "Thank you for trusting me with this. What do you need right now?" Atticus exhaled shakily. "Advice? Support? I don't know how to move forward. I'm terrified of telling the guys." "Let me help," she offered without hesitation. "One step at a time, okay? First, let's talk about what being Gabriella means to you." Their conversation stretched for hours, the coffee growing cold as Atticus articulated feelings he'd barely allowed himself to acknowledge. By the time they parted, the knot of anxiety in his chest had loosened slightly. He wasn't alone anymore. With Rhonda's encouragement, Atticus began researching online resources and support groups. He made an appointment with a campus counselor specializing in gender identity. Each small step forward helped clarify what he had known since Halloween night. Gabriella wasn't just a character he played. She was who he was meant to be. Spring break arrived, bringing with it an empty dorm as his roommates departed for beach trips and family visits. Atticus, claiming a heavy workload, stayed behind. The week of solitude became a sanctuary where Gabriella could exist freely, no longer confined to hidden hours. She wore her favorite burgundy sweater and black skirt as she ventured out of the dorm building for the first time, heart racing as she stepped onto the nearly deserted campus paths. The spring air carried the scent of new beginnings as she walked, each step growing more confident than the last. 1 year later, Atticus Blake no longer existed on official records. In his place stood Gabriella Blake, her blonde hair grown out to shoulder length, her wardrobe reflecting her true self, her student ID bearing the name that had first emerged at a Halloween party. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been difficult conversations with roommates, Marcus accepting immediately, Devon requiring time to process, Trent struggling with guilt over the bet that had catalyzed everything. There had been paperwork and medical consultations, coming out to professors and family members, navigating relationships and friendships from a new perspective. But as October approached again and Halloween decorations appeared across campus, Gabriella felt a surge of nostalgia and gratitude. She pulled a dusty shopping bag from the back of her closet in the small apartment she now shared with two female roommates who had become dear friends. Inside was the Playboy bunny costume, preserved exactly as it had been that fateful night. She ran her fingers over the black satin corset, remembering the discomfort that had ultimately led to liberation. Her phone chimed with a text from Rhonda. "Annual Halloween party still on? Chris keeps asking if you'll be there." Gabriella smiled, thinking of Chris, who had become a supportive friend after the initial misunderstanding was cleared up. He had even introduced her to her current girlfriend, a photography major named Heather. "Wouldn't miss it," she replied, adding, "Bringing back the costume that started it all." That night, as she carefully arranged the bunny ears atop her natural blonde hair and adjusted the corset over her transformed body, Gabriella felt the poetic symmetry of it all. What had begun as a humiliating dare had become a cherished origin story, a moment of accidental authenticity that had revealed her true self. The Gamma Phi house looked much the same as it had a year ago, though she viewed it through dramatically different eyes. As she entered with Heather on her arm, several people recognized her and called out greetings. No confusion, no double takes, just acceptance of who she had always been meant to be. "You look amazing," Heather whispered, squeezing her hand. "Happy anniversary." Gabriella smiled, adjusting her black satin bunny ears. "Best bet I ever lost." Across the room, she spotted Trent in the same vampire costume he'd worn last year. Their eyes met, and he raised his drink in a silent toast of acknowledgement and respect. Gabriella nodded back, no longer harboring any resentment for the dare that had ultimately set her free. As the night unfolded around her, music pulsing, friends laughing, her girlfriend's hand warm in hers, Gabriella made a private promise to herself. Each Halloween, she would don the bunny costume as a personal tradition, a celebration of the night that had changed everything. Some might view it as just another Halloween costume, but for Gabriella, it was so much more. It was a reminder that sometimes the most significant discoveries happen when we least expect them, that authentic identity can emerge from the most unlikely circumstances, and that courage often begins with a single night of being seen for who you truly are. The black satin corset that had once felt like a punishment now embraced her like an old friend, the costume no longer a disguise, but a cherished memento of her journey. As midnight approached, and she posed for photos with friends old and new, Gabriella Blake was exactly where, and who, she was meant to be. 5 years after that life-changing Halloween, Gabriella stood in front of her bedroom mirror, carefully applying the final touches to her makeup. The black satin bunny costume lay on the bed, ready for its annual appearance. At 27, she had fully embraced her life as a woman, her transition complete both legally and physically. Her apartment, a cozy one-bedroom in the Arts District, was decorated with photographs documenting her journey. Graduation day in a flowing burgundy dress, her first professional headshot for the marketing firm where she now worked. Candid moments with friends who had stood by her through every step. A soft knock at the door interrupted her preparations. She opened it to find Marcus, now sporting a neatly trimmed beard, holding a small gift bag. "Right on time," she smiled, stepping back to let him enter. "The others should be here soon." What had begun as a private tradition, wearing the bunny costume on Halloween, had evolved over the years. Now, her closest friends gathered at her place before heading out to celebrate, honoring the anniversary of her rebirth.
"Can't believe it's been 5 years,"
Marcus said, settling on her couch.
"Remember when we thought it was just a bet?"
Gabriella laughed, returning to her makeup mirror.
"You mean when you all thought it was just a bet?
I think part of me knew something significant was happening, even then." The doorbell rang again, heralding the arrival of Devin, Rhonda, and eventually even Trent, who now lived in another state but made the trip back each year for this particular celebration. They brought food, drinks, and, more importantly, the comfortable familiarity of people who had witnessed her transformation from the beginning. As they gathered in her living room, sharing stories and laughter, Gabriella excused herself to change into the costume. Alone in her bedroom, she carefully stepped into the black satin corset, adjusting it over her figure. The fishnet stockings followed, then the high heels, and finally the ears and tail. Unlike that first night, when each piece had felt foreign and constricting, now the costume settled on her with familiar ease. The black satin embraced curves that were rightfully hers, the result of years of hormones and surgeries. Her natural blonde hair, now long and luxurious, framed her face perfectly beneath the bunny ears. When she emerged from the bedroom, her friends applauded appreciatively. There was something powerfully symbolic about the moment, Gabriella reclaiming and celebrating the very costume that had once been meant to embarrass Atticus.
"Speech!"
called Devin, raising his glass.
"It's been 5 years. We need some profound words of wisdom."
Gabriella smiled, accepting the champagne flute Rhonda handed her. "I'm not sure I have wisdom, but I do have gratitude," she began, looking at each of her friends in turn. 5 years ago, I was living a life that never quite fit. I didn't have words for what I was feeling, just a persistent discomfort that I tried to ignore. She smoothed a hand over the black satin of her costume. Then came a stupid bet, this ridiculous outfit, and suddenly, clarity. It wasn't about the clothes, though they helped me see what was possible. It was about finally recognizing myself. Trent, who had initially struggled the most with her transition, raised his glass.
"To unexpected journeys,"
he offered, his voice sincere.
"And 2 friends who walk beside you on them,"
Gabriella added, touching her glass to his. As they prepared to head out for the evening's festivities, Rhonda pulled Gabriella aside. "I found something I thought you might want to see," she said, pulling out her phone. "I was going through old photos and found this from that first Halloween." The image showed Atticus becoming Gabriella, looking simultaneously terrified and exhilarated in the black satin bunny costume, standing awkwardly beside Chris, the firefighter. The difference between that person and the confident woman Gabriella had become was striking, yet there was something in the eyes, a spark of recognition, of possibility, that remained unchanged.
"Look at those eyes," Rhonda said softly. "You were already there, weren't you? Just waiting to be discovered."
Gabriella nodded, emotion tightening her throat. "I think I was. Thank you for seeing me, even then." Their Halloween tradition continued over the years, with the original group gathering annually at Gabriella's place before venturing out to celebrate. The black satin bunny costume became not just a personal totem, but a shared symbol among friends who had witnessed an extraordinary transformation. 10 years after that first Halloween, as Gabriella prepared for the traditional gathering, She paused to reflect on the journey. Her career had flourished. She was now a creative director at her firm. She had loved and lost and loved again, currently in a fulfilling relationship with a woman who appreciated the significance of the annual costume ritual. The black satin corset had required minor repairs over the years, the fabric aging like a well-loved book. Each October, as she carefully removed it from its special storage box, she felt the same rush of gratitude for the bet that had changed everything. Sometimes, life's most significant revelations arrive in the most unexpected packaging. For Gabriella, it had come wrapped in black satin and topped with bunny ears, a Halloween costume that had revealed not a disguise, but her truest self. As she adjusted the bunny ears one more time and prepared to greet her arriving friends, Gabriella Blake smiled at her reflection. The costume that had once been a joke was now a celebration, a yearly reminder that sometimes losing a bet could mean winning a life. The black satin caught the light as she turned, the material smooth against her skin. What had once felt like constraint now felt like coming home, a perfect symbol for a journey that had begun with discomfort but led to unimaginable freedom.
Thanks for watching, my girlies. Be sure to check out Patreon for more.